It was the feast of sacrifices while this station was being written. 1/5 of mankind, 300 million people, together declaring, God is most great, God is most great, God is most great. And in relation to its size, the globe broadcasting to its fellow planets in the skies the sacred words of God is most great, and the more than 20,000 pilgrims performing the Hajj on Arafat and at the festival, together declaring God is most great, are all a response in the form of extensive, universal worship to the universal manifestation of divine dominicality through God's sublime titles of Sustainer of the earth and Sustainer of all the worlds, and are a sort of echo of the God is most great, spoken and commanded 1,300 years ago by God's noble messenger, peace and blessings be upon him and his family and companions. This I imagined and I felt and was certain about. Then I wondered if the sacred phrase has any connection with our matter. It suddenly occurred to me that foremost this phrase and many others of these marks of Islam, like there is no God but God, all praise be to God, and glory be to God, which bear the title of enduring good works, recall particular and universal points about the matter we are discussing and infer its realization. For example, one aspect of the meaning of God is most great is that divine power and knowledge are greater than everything. Nothing at all can quit the bonds of God's knowledge, nor escape or be saved from the disposals of His power. He is greater than the things we fear most. This means He is greater than bringing about the resurrection of the dead, saving us from non-existence and bestowing eternal happiness. He is greater than any strange or unimaginable thing, so that, as explicitly stated by the verse, your creation and your resurrection are bound as a single soul. The resurrection of mankind is as easy for His power as the creation of a single soul. It is in connection with this meaning that when faced by serious disasters or important undertakings, everyone says, God is most great, God is most great, making it a source of consolation, strength, and support for themselves. As is shown in the 9th verse, the above phrase and its two fellows, that is, God is most great, and glory be to God, and all praise be to God, form the seeds and summaries of the ritual prayers, the index of all worship, and in order to corroborate the meaning of the prayers, are repeated in the tasbihat following them. They provide the powerful answers to the questions arising from the wonderment, pleasure, and awe man feels at the strange, beautiful, extraordinary things he sees in the universe, which cause him to offer thanks and to feel awe at their grandeur. Moreover, at the end of the 16th word, it is described how at the festival a private soldier and a field marshal enter the king's presence together, whereas at other times the soldier has contact with the field marshal only through his commanding officer. Similarly, somewhat resembling the saints, a person making the Hajj begins to know God through his titles of Sustainer of the earth and Sustainer of all the worlds. With its repetition, it is again God is most great that answers all the feverish bewildered questions that overwhelm his spirit as the levels of grandeur unfold in his heart. Furthermore, at the end of the 13th flash, it is described how it is again God is most great that replies most effectively to Satan's cunning wiles, cutting them at the root, as well as answering succinctly but powerfully our question about the hereafter. The phrase, all praise be to God, also reminds us of resurrection. It says to us, I would have no meaning if there were no hereafter. For, I say, to God is due all the praise and thanks that have been offered from eternity to post-eternity, whoever they have been offered by, and to whom, for the chief of all bounties, and the only thing that makes bounty true bounty, and saves all conscious creatures from the endless calamities of non-existence, is eternal happiness. It is only eternal happiness that can be equal to that universal meaning of mine. Yes, Every day, all believers saying at least 150 times after the obligatory prayers, "All praise be to God, all praise be to God," as enjoined by the Sharia, and it's being the expression of praise and thanks which extends from pre-eternity to post-eternity, can only be the advance price and immediate fee for paradise and eternal happiness. They offer thanks since bounties are not restricted to the fleeting bounties of this world, which are tainted by the pains of transcendence, and see them as the means to eternal bounties. As for the sacred phrase, "Glory be to God," with its meaning of declaring God free of all partner, fault, defect, tyranny, impotence, unkindness, need, and deception, and all faults opposed to his perfection, beauty, and glory, it recalls eternal happiness and the realm of the hereafter, and paradise within it, which are the means to his glory and beauty, and the majesty and perfection of his sovereignty. The phrase alludes to them and indicates them. For, as has been proved previously, if there was no eternal happiness, both his sovereignty and his perfection, glory, beauty, and mercy would be stained by fault and defect. Like these three sacred phrases, "In the name of God," and "There is no God but God," and other blessed phrases are all seeds of the pillars of faith. Like the meat essences and sugar concentrates that have been discovered recently, they are summaries of both the pillars of belief and the truths of the Qur'an. The three mentioned above are both the seeds of the 5 daily prayers, and they are the seeds of the Qur'an, sparkling like brilliance at the beginning of a number of shining surahs. So too are they the true sources and basis of the Risale-i Nur, many of whose inspirations first came while I was reciting the tasbihat following the prayers. They are the seeds of its truths. In respect of the sanctity and worship of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, these phrases are the invocations of the Muhammadan, peace and blessings be upon him, way which, following each of the 5 daily prayers, more than 100 million believers repeat together in a vast circle of remembrance. Their beads in their hands, they declare, "Glory be to God," 33 times, "All praise be to God," 33 times, and "God is most great," 33 times. You have surely understood now the great value of reciting 33 times after the 5 daily prayers in such a splendid circle for the remembrance of God. Each of those 3 blessed phrases, which as explained above, are the summaries and seeds of both the Qur'an and belief and the prayers. You have understood too the great reward they yield. The first topic at the beginning of this treatise forms an excellent lesson about the obligatory 5 daily prayers. Then, although I did not think of it, involuntarily the end here became an important lesson about the tasbihat following the prayers. Praise be to God for his bounties. Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise. The 9th topic. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. The messenger believes in what has been revealed to him from his sustainer, as do the men of faith. Each one of them believes in God, his angels, his books, and his messengers. We make no distinction, they say, between one and another of his messengers, to the end of the verse. An awesome question and a state of mind arising from the unfolding of a vast divine bounty were the causes of my explaining a universal, lengthy point about this comprehensive, elevated, and sublime verse. It was like this. It occurred to my spirit, why does a person who denies a part of the truths of belief become a disbeliever, and one who does not accept a part of them cannot be a Muslim? Surely, belief in God and the hereafter dispels the darkness like the sun. Also, why does a person who denies one of the pillars and truths of belief become an apostate, falling into disbelief, and by not accepting it, quit Islam? Whereas, if he believes in the other pillars of belief, it should save him from absolute disbelief? The answer: belief is a single truth which, composed of its 6 pillars, cannot be divided up. It is a universal that cannot be separated into parts. It is a whole that cannot be broken up. For each of the pillars of belief proves the other pillars with the proofs that prove itself. They are all extremely powerful proofs of each other. In which case, an invalid idea that cannot shake all the pillars together with all their proofs cannot in reality negate any one of the pillars or even a single of their truths and cannot deny them. Under the veil of non-acceptance, one might only, by shutting his eyes, commit obstinate unbelief. He would by degrees fall into absolute disbelief and lose his humanity and go to hell, both physically and mentally. In this station then, with God's grace, we shall explain this supreme matter in 6 points in the form of brief summaries, just as in the fruits of belief, when proving the resurrection of the dead, the other pillars of belief's proofs of resurrection were propounded in the form of brief summaries. First point: belief in God proves with its own proofs both the other pillars, and belief in the hereafter, as is shown clearly in the 7th topic of the fruits of belief. Yes, is it at all possible, and can reason accept that a pre-eternal everlasting sovereignty of dominicality, a post-eternal divine rule which administers the boundless universe as though it were a palace, a city, or a country, and makes it revolve in balanced and ordered fashion, and changes it with wisdom, and equips and directs all together particles, planets, flies, and stars as though each were a regular army, and continues the drill stem within the spheres of commands, and will in a lofty manevra, and employing them in duties makes them act, and causes them to roam and travel, and to parade worshipfully. Is it at all possible that that eternal, everlasting, enduring rule would not have an eternal seat, a permanent and everlasting place of manifestation, that is, the hereafter? God forbid. That means the sovereignty of Almighty God's dominicality, and, as is described in the 7th topic, most of His names and the proofs of His necessary existence require the hereafter and testify to it. So, see and understand what powerful support this pole of belief has, and believe in it as though seeing it. Also, just as there could be no belief in God without the hereafter, so, as is explained with brief indications in the 10th word, is it at all possible, and could reason accept that God, the true object of worship, should create the universe in order to manifest His Godhead and fitness to be worshipped, as an embodied book, every page of which expresses a book of meanings, and every line of which states a page of meanings, and as an embodied Qur'an, all the creational signs and words and even points and letters of which are miracles, and as a magnificent mask of His mercy, the inside of which is decorated with numberless inscriptions and adornments, and in every corner of which are species of beings, each preoccupied with the worship dictated by its nature. Is it at all possible He should create it in this way, and not send masters to teach the meanings of that vast book, and commentators to expound the verses of that Qur'an, and not appoint prayer leaders to that huge mosque to lead all those worshipping in their myriad ways, and that He should not give decrees to those masters, commentators, and leaders of worship? God forbid, 100,000 times. Also, is it at all possible, and could reason accept that the most compassionate and beneficent Maker, who, in order to display to conscious beings the beauty of His mercy and the goodness of His compassion and the perfection of His dominicality, and in order to encourage them to praise and thank Him, creates the universe as a banqueting hall, exhibition, and place of excursion in which are displayed infinite varieties of delicious bounties and priceless, wondrous arts? Is it at all possible that He should not speak with those conscious beings at the banquet and not inform them by means of envoys of their duties of thanks for the bounties and their duties of worship in the face of the manifestations of His mercy and His making Himself loved. God forbid 100,000 times. Also, is it at all possible that although the Maker loves His art and wants others to love it, and as is shown by His having taken into account the 1,000 pleasures of the mouth, wants it to be met with appreciation and approval, and has adorned the universe with priceless arts in a way that shows He wants through all His arts both to make Himself known and loved and to display a sort of His transcendent beauty? Is it at all possible that He should not speak to men, the commanders of living beings in the universe, through some of the most eminent of them, and send them as envoys, and that His fine arts should not be appreciated, and the exquisite beauty of His names not be valued, and His making Himself known and loved be unreciprocated? God forbid 100,000 times. Also, is it at all possible or reasonable that the all-knowing speaker, who answers clearly by act and deed through His infinite bounties and gifts which indicate intention, choice, and will, at exactly the right time, all the supplications of living beings for their natural needs and their desires, and recourse through the tongue of disposition, that He should speak by deed and by state with the most insignificant living creature, and remedy its woes, and heed its troubles with His bounties, and know its needs, and meet them, then not meet with the spiritual leaders of man, who are the choicest result of the universe, the vicegerents of the earth, and the commanders of most of the creatures on the earth. Although He speaks with them and with all living beings, should He not speak with men verbally and send them scriptures, books, and decrees? God forbid, innumerable times. That is to say, with its certainty and innumerable proofs, belief in God proves belief in the prophets and sacred scriptures. Also, is it at all possible or reasonable that in response to the One who makes Himself known and loved through all His creatures and seeks thanks by deed and state, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, should have known and made known, loved and made loved that glorious artist through the Qur'anic reality which brings the universe to tumult, and with His declarations of glory be to God, all praise be to God, and God is most great, should have caused the globe to ring out, so that it could be heard by the heavens, and have brought the land and seas to ecstasy, and that in 1,300 years He should have taken behind Him numerically a fifth of mankind, and qualitatively a half of it, and responded with extensive, universal worship to all the manifestations of the creature's dominicality, that in the face of all the divine purposes He should have called out with the Qur'an's surahs to the universe and the centuries, and taught them and proclaimed them, that He should have demonstrated the honor, value, and duties of man, and that He should have been confirmed through His 1,000 miracles, and that He should not have been the most choice creature, the most excellent of envoys, and the greatest prophet. Is this at all possible? God forbid. 100,000 times God forbid. That is to say, with all its proofs, the truth of I testify that there is no God but God proves the truth of I testify that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Also, is it at all possible that the universe's maker should cause creatures to speak with one another in myriad tongues, and that He should listen to their speech and know it, and Himself not speak? God forbid. Also, is it at all reasonable that He should not proclaim through a decree the divine purposes in the universe? That He should not send a book like the Qur'an, which will solve its riddles and provide the true answers to the three awesome universally asked questions? Where do they come from? Where are they going? And why do they follow on caravan after caravan, stop by for a while, then pass on? God forbid. Also, is it at all possible that the Qur'an of miraculous exposition, which has illuminated 13 centuries, every hour is uttered with complete veneration by 100 million tongues, is inscribed through its sacredness in the hearts of millions of hafizes, in effect governs through its laws the greater part of mankind, and trains, purifies, and instructs their souls, spirits, hearts, and minds, and 40 aspects of whose miraculousness is proved in the Risale-i Nur and explained in the wondrous 19th letter, which demonstrates an aspect of its miraculousness towards each of 40 classes of men, and as one of the 1,000 miracles of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is proved decisively to be the true word of God. Is it at all possible that it should not be the words and decree of the pure eternal speaker and eternal maker? God forbid. 100,000 times God forbid. That is to say, with all its proofs, belief in God proves that the Qur'an is the word of God. Also, is it at all possible that the glorious monarch who continuously fills and empties the earth with living beings and inhabits this world of ours with conscious creatures in order to make himself known and worshipped and glorified, should leave the heavens and earth empty and vacant, and not create inhabitants suitable to them, and settle them in those lofty palaces, that in his most extensive lands he should leave the sovereignty of his dominicality without servants, functionaries, envoys, and majesty, without lieutenants, supervisors, spectators, worshippers, and subjects? God forbid. To the numbers of the angels, God forbid. Also, is it at all possible that the all-wise ruler, the all-knowing and compassionate one, should write the universe in the form of a book, inscribe the entire life stories of trees in all their seeds, and write in the seeds of grasses and plants all their vital duties, and record precisely the lives of conscious beings in their memories, as tiny as mustard seeds, and preserve with innumerable photographs all the actions and events in all his dominions and all the eras of his sovereignty, and create mighty heaven and hell and the supreme scales of justice for the manifestation and realization of justice, wisdom, and mercy, the basis of his dominicality, then not have written down the acts of man connected with the universe, nor have their deeds recorded so they may meet with rewards or punishments, nor write their good and bad deeds on the tablets of divine determining, God forbid, to the number of letters inscribed on them. That is to say, with its proofs, the truth of belief in God proves the truth of both belief in the angels and belief in divine determining. The pillars of belief prove each other as clearly as the sun shows the daylight, and daylight shows the sun. Second point, all the teachings and claims of foremost the Qur'an and all the revealed books and scriptures and foremost Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and all the prophets are based on 5 or 6 points. They have continually striven to teach and prove those basic teachings. All the proofs and evidences which testify to their messengership and truthfulness look to those bases, corroborating their veracity. And those fundamentals are belief in God and belief in the hereafter and in the other pillars of belief. That is to say, it is not possible to separate the 6 pillars of belief. Each proves all of them and requires them and necessitates them. The 6 are a whole, a universal that cannot be broken in parts and whose division is outside the bounds of possibility. Like the tuba tree, whose roots are in the heavens, each branch, fruit, and leaf of that mighty tree relies on its universal, inexhaustible life. A person unable to deny that powerful life, which is as clear as the sun, cannot deny the life of a single of its leaves attached to it. If he does deny it, the tree will refute him to the number of its branches, fruits, and leaves, and silence him. Belief, with its 6 pillars, is similar to this. At the beginning of this station, I intended to expound the 6 pillars of belief in 36 points, as 6 points, each with 5 subsections. I also intended to reply to and explain the awesome question at the beginning. But certain unforeseen circumstances did not permit this. I reckoned the first point was sufficient, so for the intelligence no need remained for further explanation. It was understood perfectly that if a Muslim denies one of the pillars of belief, he falls into absolute disbelief. For, in the face of the summary explanations of other religions, Islam expounds and elucidates them completely, and the pillars of belief are bound together. A Muslim who does not recognize Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and does not assent to him, will not recognize God or His attributes, and will not know the hereafter. A Muslim's belief is based on such powerful, unshakable, and innumerable proofs that there is no excuse for denial. They quite simply compel the reason to accept them. Third point. One time I said, "All praise be to God," and searched for a bounty that would be equal to its infinitely broad meaning. Suddenly, the following sentence occurred to me: "All praise be to God for belief in God and for His unity and necessary extents and attributes and names to the number of the manifestations of His names from pre-eternity to post-eternity." I looked and saw it was completely appropriate. As follows: